Eric Hayes, thank you for joining me today here on the Pivot Series, the Building Bellingham podcast. You've got I keep looking at that background you have there, and it's such an awesome picture you have in your office there.
Yeah, if I can say anything about it, it's Gretchen Liggett is absolutely amazing, and everybody should go check out her stuff.
Awesome. It's so much better than my manufactured here background that I have here. It looks like I'm in a bubble.
Yeah, normally I'm actually facing that direction, so I get to enjoy it myself. I turn it around if we're doing any kind of Zoom call so that it's less distracting with my glass doors behind me. So you get to enjoy it right now.
Well, thank you for sharing Gretchen's work with the world here today in the local community. And Eric, so you're the Chief Marketing Officer for Superfeet here locally, and you guys are up in Ferndale, correct?
Correct.
Awesome. So tell me a little bit more about what you do for the company, what the company is about, and really what you sell.
Sure. So Superfeet is, we were founded in 1977. We've been local to Whatcom County ever since then. In 43 years, we have built up our foundational shape. What we sell fundamentally is biomechanical knowledge translated into the Superfeet shape and then delivered via insoles and footwear through both our own products, but then also through other people's products that we license into. We are 100% employee owned, which is a pretty unique structure. It allows for a really unique feel and a special feeling in a way that we run our business on the inside. When everybody in the company has the opportunity to participate in the ownership of the company, it creates a literal ownership in terms of a financial ownership, but then also just that kind of spiritual and emotional ownership over the work that you're outputting. That's just a different level than what you feel, or at least in my experience, that you feel in non-ESOP companies.
Yeah, and for people out there that are listening or will listen to this, what does that mean to be completely employee owned versus having, say, one or two owners? How does that go for decision making? What does that process look like for you?
Yeah, it was a unique structure. It's not one that I had exposure to prior to joining Superfeet. So from a governance standpoint, we operate just like a normal business. We have our CEO and our executive team that leads the organization in strategic planning and direction setting, vision setting. And then we have our VPs and directors and managers all the way throughout the organization, just like you would find any place else. The difference is as the company succeeds, the employees via their ownership have a direct, tangible benefit to that success. So as we grow, the value of the company, the value of your individual share grows as well. And so to a degree, you could see it as another form of a retirement plan where your growth is occurring. So not necessarily in the traditional, like a 401k scenario, but instead you're participating in the growth of the company. It's a little bit different than what you might find is in terms of like profit sharing or a public company that has options on stock. This is a true ownership in terms of you operate more as a founder and an owner in the business, that you're seeing the value of your asset grow as the company itself grows. And then from a feeling standpoint and the way that it actually operates inside the business, that's where the real magic happens, I think. It is it's a unique structure that allows for that individual ownership in day-to-day activities and day-to-day expenses and day-to-day sales and day-to-day culture and day-to-day brand building, that if you just have it sitting as a profit sharing opportunity where you can take money off the table, you don't have that. It's a different type of participation. This is something where when you're an employee owner like we all are, you speak about the company with a pride that usually you only, at least in my experience, have felt or seen in somebody who sits at the top of a big organization that happens to be the owner and the majority shareholder, where they feel like it's their own. Well, now we have every single person in our company feeling like it's their own, because it literally is.
It's amazing. So it's a sense of pride, of ownership for each person, which when you're thinking about departments, each person has their specialty, and you don't have the time necessarily to focus on all of the minute details, while the people that may work within your department do. And so giving them that ownership, it almost like creates a fire within each person that you may not have if they didn't have that ownership, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It is. It's just different is the best way I can see it. And so far, as best as I can tell, it's better in every way. I really enjoyed the engagement. And I think, as a leader in an organization, what you're always trying to do is foster engagement by empowering people to take ownership in their work and to take pride in their work. Well, with an ESOP, you literally have ownership in your work, and you participate in that growth. And so that engagement that we're all trying to seek and we're trying to foster becomes that much easier to really facilitate.
Awesome. Yeah, it's such a cool business model. I'm a big fan. So let's talk briefly about COVID. I don't want to talk the whole time about this, but I want to talk a little bit about between January and now for Superfeet and for you.
Sure.
January, we start to hear about this. We're getting a little bit, our spidey senses are tingling. Something's going on. Maybe it's just over in China, or it's just in this area. It's not quite here yet. Right. And then it hits. What is that like for you? What is that like for Superfeet? January to now, what has that process been like for you?
Yeah, it's a roller coaster without a doubt. And if you think back to our January, we were coming off a great year in 2019. We had just won some pretty amazing business, seen some expansion in some of our core business, and it was just great. I mean, kind of that rocket ship ride, which was fantastic. January comes, we're starting, to your point, to kind of hear some buzz out there. February comes in, and we're like, hey, this is something. We're an international company. We have sales, obviously, in Asia, in Europe, and outside of the U.S., and we were starting to plan for a little bit of impact, what it might be. End of February comes, and we were actually, myself and a group from Superfeet were lobbying on behalf of the outdoor industry, on behalf of the Conservation Alliance, who we support, and we were in DC. And that's when it really coalesced, where this thing went from being something that was really unfortunate that was happening in China to something that was very obviously going to be a global pandemic and a global issue and a true economic crisis. We were in DC, and people started dropping out of the trip. All of a sudden, certain company X, pulled their employees back and whatnot. We pushed through that trip, and then we shut down travel immediately thereafter. Went through another week or so of just, hey, let's try to get our hands wrapped around this thing. How can we do it? We sent our employees home, mainly to work from home, mainly to be able to protect our core essential staff. We do assembly and shipping out of our facility here in Ferndale. So we wanted to make sure that we were going to avoid anything and kind of minimize the exposure to the folks that have to be in the building in order to be able to do their jobs. That was about a week or so before the mandatory stay-at-home order came into effect. And then on March 13th, that's kind of when we all left. And that was the last time that I've actually been in the office, which is just crazy when I think back to it. So if you think about the difference between, let's say January 1st and March 13th, it was it became a completely different business plan and business or strategic plan, I should say, that we were operating under, because everything changed. And just that fast, all of those plans to execute coming off of those tremendous wins in 2019 became, that what are you doing? What's right in front of your face, and how are you going to address it? What's changed since then is we got our feet back underneath us. We were able to make the changes necessary to make sure that we had a healthy, viable business. And now we're back into doing what we normally do, which is looking to the future and planning for the future and being able to ensure that we remain relevant for our consumers, for our retailers, and ultimately for our owners, to make sure that Superfeet has a really important place in everyone's future. So I guess if I compare January to now, it seems like it's a different universe, which is just crazy.
Yep.
If you think about it. For us, you know, my question to that, and maybe this is the one that you would have as well, is how do you do that? Like, as a business leader, how do you take an opportunity, a circumstance like this, and find opportunity inside of it?
Right.
And for us, Superfeet, we spent 43 years developing a brand, developing a culture, and developing a system by which we operate. And it's built on top of a mission and a purpose and a vision, and then ultimately what we call our brand truths. Without those things in place, we would be left wandering. And that's kind of you see the value in investing in those kind of esoteric parts of a business when a crisis comes to pass. And that's the biggest thing that my takeaway is from the difference between January and now is, while we're operating under a fundamentally different strategy in terms of our yearly plan, we are not operating underneath a different strategy as it relates to the overall of Superfeet. In fact, what we did, and I think what healthy businesses are able to do, is lean really heavily on those core principles as guiding principles to be able to find our way through this crisis. If we had to start inventing our mission and vision, I think we would be in a much, much different place and a much more challenging place than we are.
Absolutely. I mean, it's the relationship. It's the relationship with the people that work within your company. And then it's what brings people closer together in moments like this. And then it's also what brings people closer together between you, Superfeet, and the consumer, the customer, that is a, consistent. Like, I've got Superfeet in all my shoes, and I've never met you before, but I relate to the brand. And so let's talk a little bit about brand, because I know that's a lot of your world and what you do. You said it's incredibly important right now for that. What does Superfeet stand for? What is the mission, the vision, the value? What does Superfeet stand for, and how has that been so important in this time?
Sure. We talk about Superfeet being a different type of company. You could point to our literal structure in ESOP as being a little bit different. It's outside the norm for sure. Our purpose is to make a positive difference in all the lives that we touch by shaping a strong foundation. And that's core to who we are. We've been doing it for 43 years, whether it's through delivering amazing shape in the form of an insole to somebody who has been debilitated because of foot pain. We do it through the actual Superfeet Foundation, where we donate 1% of our annual revenue to needy causes and charitable causes really across the world. We do it in the way that we service our employees. We try to make sure that every decision we make is going to make a positive difference out there. It can be kind of overwhelming sometimes to try to think that way, but we believe that purpose is the underlying principle that allows us to do business and decide if we're going to do A or B. And building off that then is really our vision. And this, was brought, I think, to the forefront more than anything, and that's to always be there when you need us and to bring out the awesome in everyone. And we talk a lot about being the awesome. It's kind of a play off of be the change you want to see in the world. We want to be the awesome that we want to see in the world. We want to enable ourselves, our employees, our customers, our retailers, our consumers to be the awesome that they want to see, that they want to be, and that they need. In this particular circumstance, I'm going to point to our healthcare providers. We've all been working to flatten the curve, to ensure that we don't overwhelm the healthcare system. And the way that we saw that we could do that best and help them be the awesome that we literally need right now was to be able to kind of pivot the organization and focus on something that we thought that we could uniquely kind of fill a void and fill a gap that existed in their world. And so we stepped pretty quickly after we started seeing the need out there into supplying some PPE for them to allow them to be the awesome that we all need literally in the world right now. So that's just one example of trying to live that vision. Then we have our brand truths. Our brand truths really, it's funny how different things rise and fall depending on what you're going through as a company or just as a person. And we've got a handful of brand truths that we live by. The brand truth that really we've put first and foremost in this crisis is people first. So people first for us, it can mean a lot of different things. As it relates to this particular crisis, we're really focused on ensuring that our people, that our Superfeet employee owners are who we are working towards first and foremost to ensure that they can continue being employees and bringing out that being the awesome that we know them to be. So for us, what people first meant was really putting all of our decisions through three lenses, if you will. Number one, whatever we did in this crisis, we were going to preserve jobs. That making sure that whoever started this journey with us is going to end this journey with us was number one. So anything that we could do, anything we can do, anything that we will do, will be in order to preserve jobs. Number two, we want to make sure that we avoid hardship anywhere possible. There's tons of decisions that you have to make on a daily basis, and especially in a crisis environment. And when you start painting with too broad of a brush, it's really easy to lose the individual nature of some of those decisions and place too much hardship or place hardship at all on individuals. And we want to avoid that at all costs. So we tried to remember in every single decision that this might be a business, quote unquote, decision, but our business is made up of individuals, and how does this affect each and every individual? And how can we make sure that this decision does not place undue hardship on anybody? So that's our second lens. And then our third lens was and is we have a brand promise. You talk about brand. Brand is not just a pretty logo. A brand is how you're solving those problems out there in the world. We have a brand promise to our retailers and to our consumers that we are still going to fulfill. So just because this thing is going on, we're not walking away from who Superfeet is and from how Superfeet does business. We are still going to continue to fulfill on that brand promise. I mean, we got 43 years in the making of building that brand promise. We're not going to let a crisis of several months to years be able to tear that down. So anything that we do goes through those three lenses to make sure that Superfeet stays Superfeet, that brand that the brand does not change, that the brand promise stays into effect.
That's wow. That I just sponged all of that. Thank you for sharing that with everybody. And one of the things that you just touched on briefly was brand's not just a logo. And I think, I don't know if you hear the same thing in your experience, but I hear a lot of business owners that are so concerned about what the logo looks like. And I keep saying, and I'm not, granted, I'm probably not even close to as experienced as you are. And there's a lot of people out there that are much more experienced than I am. But one thing that I'm learning is set aside the logo, focus on the core values, and the core values will turn into the logo, right? The logo is just the front facing shell to that, right?
Right. Yeah. Set the logo on fire. I mean, what you've got is in a brand is so much more than anything that you can see on a nice shirt. You know what I mean? Your brand is truly the experience of what you do and how you do it. And that's what you've got to focus on. And you should be focused on it no matter what in business, but especially in times of crisis like this. This is when your brand becomes everything.
How important is that? Are those core values to have a collaboration of the people involved instead of just, like say ownership or CEO says, you know what, this are our core values, and it doesn't align with a bunch of people. How do you create those with the people involved in your organization, and why is that important?
Yeah, I mentioned earlier engagement, and if you there's about 100 different agencies probably just in Wacom that would work with you on your brand and being able to build values and vision statements and things like this. And a lot of those agencies are absolutely fantastic at building engagement. There's a lot of agencies that will deliver you a nicely bundled package that has those things built in. And if you receive a bundle from the outside that has an amazing message and amazing all these other things and a pretty logo, and fail to get engagement and adoption from the inside, then it's an alternative brand. It is something other, and it's a pretty logo at that point. What we do very intentionally inside of Superfeet, and what I would encourage everybody to do if you're going to have effective engagement inside, is it has to be born on the inside. It has to be built from the inside. It has to be fostered on the inside. It has to be owned by the people that are going to live it and breathe it. That a brand can be led by a good executive team, but it cannot be fostered and really made to flourish by just a top-down structure. It has to be owned. It has to be changed. You have to be willing and open to influence, I guess I would say, to others inside the organization, influencing and molding it and making it better. And what we've seen is when we tear down the walls between our employee owners and the control over that brand, our brand gets 10 times stronger and much better than we could ever do otherwise. So that kind of ownership and that kind of engagement is key if you're going to have a successful brand.
So it's finding the right people that fit the culture, defining that
100%.
culture.
I mean, people are the culture.
Yeah.
You're not trying to find people that fit the culture. You're trying to find good, solid people with a belief system that allows them to build the culture beyond where it actually is today.
Yeah, absolutely.
Culture is living and breathing, right? I mean, you can have core principles that are not going to change, but the tactics and how you're delivering those things and what does that mean, those are things that have to be living and breathing to keep your brand relevant in a kind of ever-changing, and especially right now, changing marketplace.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I want to go back to something you said about, okay, so the PPE, the whole conversation of PPE, I just watched the video this morning, the demonstration on how it all works. And, I don't know the products beyond, because I have the insoles, that's the product that I know really well. But beyond that, you guys made a decision to supply, was it something like 40,000 units?
Yeah, we got about 42,000 out there right now. Yeah.
42,000 units, and then there was more on order, it sounded like?
Yeah, we've opened up an additional 30,000 capacity throughout May.
And where are those going predominantly? Are those staying in Whatcom County? Are those going out to Washington State, or wherever they need to be?
So when this whole thing started, it was Whatcom County focused. This was, if you kind of think back in the not all that distant past, remember when the big thing was we need surgical masks. We need people to step up, and people were literally selling masks in their garage and donating their time and energy in these masks to hospitals and healthcare providers to try to keep their capacity high and keep people safe. What we did was we reached out just through our personal networks and business networks to our local healthcare providers, specifically our local hospital here, and said, hey, what do you guys need? In our minds, we were picturing a relatively idle manufacturing line on the insole side, maybe being able to pitch in and we could output a few masks. What we ended up hearing back from them was, we've got a lot of different needs, and there's this one particular product called a Papper hood that we really want to step up our level of protection with for our healthcare providers, but we're in dire supply. We just don't keep very many on hand. They're really only used in airborne disease scenarios, like a tuberculosis outbreak or something, which just doesn't happen that often. It's not a normal part of their world. So how is there a way that you could pitch in and be able to do that. We looked at them, and because we have our industrial 3D printers, the HP multi-jet fusion printers, they were sitting relatively idle, and we were able to utilize them to not only output prototypes, but then also in production, be able to manufacture this little plastic part that every papper hood has to have. It would be really hard to ramp up if you didn't have 3D printing capacity because of lead times on tooling and injection molding and just general cost. We were able to step into that, and then through partnership with some other local businesses and then our vendor network, be able to put together this cut and sew, the hood portion of it, the clear face shield, and then this 3D printed port product that we were then able to assemble in our manufacturing facility and then output via shipping to the different hospitals around. We first and foremost fulfilled the need inside of our local area hospitals, but then we're able to expand that to go well beyond that, mainly in the Northwest and down the Western seaboard of the US. Then most recently, after we were able to kind of establish the supply chain, we were able to expand that out. Now we're actually shipping them nationwide. So that's been a huge win for us to be able to be a part of the solution and not just watching it from the sidelines is amazing. If you could hear the true appreciative nature and this amazing spirit of the hospital workers that are coming back to us to be able to say, hey, you've really done something amazing here. You're helping, you're being a part of the solution, and you're literally saving people's lives with your products. That's fantastic. Exactly what we want to hear. We're thrilled to be able to do it. And from a business standpoint, having the engineering capacity, having the product development expertise, having the sourcing expertise, and then the operational wherewithal to be able to pull that off, a huge testament to the folks that work on the front lines of Superfeet day in and day out. We threw this idea at them on a Wednesday, and the following Monday, we had a prototype to share with our local hospital. I mean, it's truly that kind of wartime effort where everybody rallied to the need and applied their expertise, and were able to, in this case, really, really help some folks. So we're humbled to be able to be a part of it, and hopefully help many, many more people with it until such time as we're not needed in that way anymore.
Yeah, that's so fast. That's amazing. And so it sounds like, we had talked with Wes Herman about the drive-through being the one thing in his business that had saved him at this time, because he can't have people come actually physically into the business. So it sounds like this was a drive-through for you metaphorically, but also it was so impactful on the other side. It was even more impactful. I mean, changing people's lives by helping them physically is one thing, but to save lives beyond that is
it's huge.
So
it's huge. It's a natural. I mean, it's living and breathing those brand truths that I just talked to you about. One of ours is reach beyond the edges, right? This is way beyond the edge of what Superfeet normally has been. It employed every ounce of innovation that we have ever even thought about, all in one kind of hyper-focused project. So that's fantastic. And I already mentioned, be the awesome is exactly what we strive for. And in this particular case, what we always say is Superfeet, we've been keeping people on their feet or helping them get back on their feet since 1977. In this particular case, keeping healthcare providers on their feet so that curve doesn't have to come any flatter than we already need to make it. Keeping that potential healthcare capacity at its highest is huge. And so it does a lot of different things. One, it keeps healthcare providers healthy, which is fantastic, right? Two, it allows them to be able to care for more potential COVID patients, and then just also the general populace that has whatever issue that might pop up that they need their healthcare provider for. And then you keep those two things together, and if you think about what we're all trying to get back to is some degree of normalcy. We want to have some kind of a win so that we can start living lives outside of our own homes.
Right.
and safely and in our community. Well, to meet that goal, you're going to need to do some of these things. So we're able to be a part of meeting our overall goal, which is also just getting back to life, getting back to business, and getting back to helping people in the normal Superfeet way, which is really what we want to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And for you on a personal level, what, not being in the office means that you're probably working at home, or
Yeah.
you're at home and spending time with family or friends via Zoom, whatever it may be. Things have changed, right? And what have been some silver linings for you from a grounding perspective and a reset perspective personally?
My wife and I talk about this a lot here recently, and that is, obviously nobody wants to be in this situation because of a global pandemic and a crisis. However, being a reasonably optimistic person, I look at a lot of the things that we're learning and getting to experience right now as a huge opportunity and a kind of a win. We've gotten to be able to spend more time with our family than I think ever before in our time here at Superfeet, which is fantastic. Just from a pure commute standpoint, being able to shave about an hour of my day off and be able to bring that back to some kind of productivity, whether it's in the business or with my family or just personally being able to exercise more, that's a huge win. It's like I just earned an hour of my day back, which never, I mean, tell me another way that you can do that. I don't know one. I would love to, short of like waking up earlier and going to bed later, which has its own, negative consequences.
Time travel is another way.
Time travel. Yeah. Maybe I should lean on that one.
Yeah.
So that's been a huge win. Little things, like being able to sit around the dinner table together. Those are huge wins that I'm going to be really thankful for. On the business side of things, we made a commitment to ourselves that we would up our communication game. Every employee survey that you ever do inside of an organization, I don't care which organization it is going to indicate that you need to have better communication. That is the nature of the beast, and we should always be striving towards communicating better. What we said was, we're making a radical, like, not little beach entry or exit into a stay-at-home work environment. We're falling off a cliff or jumping off a cliff. And in order to facilitate that and make that happen, we're gonna have to be more intentional in our communication than ever before. And a lot of the things that we've employed in order to communicate better amongst our small teams and larger teams and then the whole company itself, these are things that are gonna stick even after we open up the building again. They've been tremendously helpful and beneficial for the organization, and so we'll find those kind of small wins and be able to continue them on. I think we're getting stretched pretty tight and pretty far, and we're finding the edges and we're going past the edges, and a lot of those things, we're going to fail, and that's okay. That's part of stretching. But we're also going to succeed, and where we do, we're gonna take the best of that and keep it as a part of our company, and we'll be a better company coming out of this than we were going into it.
So yeah, I like the cliff analogy, and I keep hearing that from a lot of different people in our world, where we're forced to just try these new things, and these things that we talked about being a year down the road are now a week down the road, and
Totally.
or your prototype that you created. I mean, Wednesday to Monday, that's pretty quick. Maybe that designed over 6 months or so. So
Right.
Do you feel like there's innovative opportunity in moments like this? I mean, have you seen that with other companies? Have you seen, outside of the PPE? Do you feel like honing in those communications and tightening those systems down because they have to be? Do you think, are you going to be able to hold that on the other side, do you think, or is that the
Absolutely. No, I mean, that's absolutely our intent. Is in times of stress, certain things arise, and some of those things are.
Oh. We are experiencing technical difficulties. Eric will be back shortly. This is a PSA. So if anybody has any questions right now, While Eric is off the call here, we're getting ready to wrap up the call. If anybody has any questions that they'd like me to ask him, or if they'd like to comment below, I'll make sure they can forward that to Eric here and get any questions answered. I would love to hear any feedback on this episode today. I know that I've learned a lot purely just from Eric from a marketing perspective. Again, thank you so much for joining us today. Please feel free to comment below. Please feel free to reach out on the Building Bellingham page. And please definitely go follow Superfeet. So if you're not familiar with Superfeet, you can find them at superfeet.com. Pretty easy to find. They're the only one with that website. There's a lot more about their company there. So a lot more about their giving structure, a lot more about their PPE campaign, just more about their culture and what they do. You can find their products there, which is great. They're involved in a lot of local races when it comes to biking, hiking, running, hiking races, of course. But you can find them on Facebook. The link is going to be in the description for this episode here. And then you can also find them on Instagram. So go follow them. And please, any feedback on that would be great. And then if you're not familiar with Building Bellingham, go ahead and find us. If you want to find our podcast, you can find us at buildingbellingham.com or on YouTube, where all of these series episodes will be, and also at building.bellingham.com. So Eric's coming right back, and I'm going to have him join in again. Welcome back.
Hey, was that like a commercial timeout? What just happened there?
I have no idea. You just disappeared. I thought you were time traveling.
Yeah, I guess I was leaning too much on that time travel.
Yeah.
So I don't know exactly where we left off there. It took me a while to log back in.
I was doing a little bit more direction for people that are watching on how to find Superfeet. Pretty hard to not find Superfeet on Instagram, Facebook, and the website. I wanted to dive into a little bit more about what message would you like to give people in Bellingham and Whatcom County and our local area from you or from Superfeet, whichever direction you'd like to come from?
So as it relates to COVID, I think what we've been trying to encourage everybody to do is find where your areas of expertise can help be a part of the solution. And I don't know what those are. Everybody's got their unique areas of focus and what they're really good at. We were able to step into this Papperhood. There's other people that are able to enable, maybe better curbside pickup. I'm not sure what those things are and how you can do it, but our encouragement and part of the reason that we're going out with some of our press is to hopefully inspire others to be a part of that. I think I've been most inspired by really two things. Number one, just the feedback from the folks that we've been able to help through our efforts. But then number two, because of interviews like this and others, I've been able to hear some things from others in our community and other companies in the outdoor industry or in the running industry, in the footwear industry, and what they're doing in order to leverage their expertise is just so inspiring. And so that's what I would really say is look inside yourself. Don't just kind of hunker down and weather the storm as best you can. Look at ways that you can really kind of stretch yourself and apply your expertise to be a part of the solution. I think the more that we do that, the more, I guess it's a twofold benefit. Number one, obviously it helps the community at large, which I think everybody wants to do right now. But number two, and this is my guarantee of what we've seen, is you will end up being a better organization, a better group of individuals for having tried and having succeeded or failed in trying to make a difference. And that's the kind of the double win that you get out of it. You help your community, you help yourself. And for Superfeet, I don't think that our message is that much different than it is in a non-crisis time. Try to be the awesome that you want to see out there and try to make a positive difference in people's lives. Our CEO will talk about it day in and day out, and you'll hear it echoed throughout the halls of Superfeet. That's who we are. That's what we want to be, and it's what we hope other people.
Awesome. Yeah. And so for any of you that are out there are active, there's a lot of active people that watch this show. There's a lot of active people in Bellingham. You can see so much that, this is an international brand. Superfeet, but everybody's local here, and there's so much rooted in the community here. So if you see a guy that's flying down the mountain on Galbraith, it might be Eric on his mountain bike. And for anybody that wants to find out more information on Superfeet, you can obviously, like I mentioned before, visit superfeet.com. You can find all about what we talked about today, all about the PPE, anything that you'd like to find out on the Facebook page. The link's below, and then also on Instagram at Superfeet. Eric, thank you so much for joining me today with that awesome background. I'm thinking I'm gonna probably have to get in touch with Gretchen. That's pretty awesome.
Dr. Gretchen, I'm telling you, she's an amazing talent, and you want to talk about a local treasure. I mean, that's the definition of it right there.
And what, just quickly, you said some of our other artwork was on Chow Time, on the side of Chow Time, and then I'm not sure what the building is, but it's hard
to drive around Bellingham and not see something that Gretchen's done. I forget the name of the building. It's one of the energy company down along the water. There is a huge mural. I know she's done work on Kona Bikes Shop. I want to say she just did something in Colshan. She's everywhere, and she's awesome. So if nothing else, go on the Gretchen Liggett walk tour of Bellingham. You can see some pretty amazing artwork out there.
Just yet another example of a really awesome local business owner and artist here around town. So Eric, thank you so much for joining me today on the Pivot series and talking with me a little bit more about your personal life, your business life, everything that's going on with the company. And thank you everyone for tuning into the series today. And like I said before, if anybody wants to reach out, you can find, what's the best way for people to reach out to Superfeet with more questions?
I mean, through our website's always the best way. It's you've got options for whatever kind of inquiry that you're looking for there, and you can reach anybody that you need to. So superfeet.com is always your best option.
Yep. Go follow them on social media. You can see all the fun stuff and cool stuff and impactful stuff that they're doing in pushing forward, making sure that everyone is their most awesome version of themselves. And Eric, thank you again for your time. Appreciate you.
You bet. Thanks so much.